Hello lovely retro people, and welcome back to another review for Retro Game On. Today we're taking a look at Buck Bumble, released in 1998 by Argonaut Games and Ubisoft for the Nintendo 64. So who is Buck? And what the buck does he bumble? Well, I'm trying very hard here not to reference Kill Bill to keep this somewhat PG rated, but simply, Buck is a cyborg bee who volunteers to save the world from a conglomerate of evil insects. Hot damn, the 90s sure was a period of inspirational creativity. But why? Well, let's delve deeper.
It is the far-flung shitty future of 2010, and some dingleberry has caused a chemical spill in London, mutating all the surrounding insects. A select few of these mutated monstrosities form an evil coalition named the Herd, who are hell-bent on taking over the garden, and maybe even the entire world if they ever get around to it. You of course play as Buck Bumble, who's part of a resistance and is implanted with cyborg technology to save the day. Why you're against insects taking over the world when you're in fact an insect yourself? I have no idea. I'd be like, fuck the humans. Time for the insects to have the day in the sun, but whatever. What's important here is that you play a bee and you get to fly around shooting lasers at insects. Nice. I know what you're thinking though. You exclaim, but Brendan, third-person shooters on the N64 have to use this. And I get what you're saying, but you know what? The flight mechanics are actually quite responsive. Pointing the stick in the intended direction that you actually want to fly actually takes you in that direction. It doesn't suffer from any floatiness, and Buck feels perfectly weighted. While I know it's bad to presume the flight controls are going to be substandard just because it's on the N64, because after all Pilotwings 64 felt quite responsive, I still need to say how pleasantly surprised I am. Problems do arise when you fly close to walls or the ground though. The game seems to struggle with performing hairpin turns upwards when close to walls, as you'll just get stuck or bounce around. And if you're flying too close to the ground, then the game will just throw you into the ground combat mode. And don't get me wrong, I love the ground combat mode, which I'll talk about in a sec, but it would have been nice if maybe there was a button to push to change modes, instead of the auto detect system that Buck Bumble uses. The weapon selection is quite large, keeping things interesting. You'll start off with a little zapper, but throughout the levels you can find better weapons spread around, and they also appear when you kill certain enemies. These range from shotguns to missiles that can be controlled once shot. These are fairly easy to shoot in both modes. You can actually hover while flying if you're not so brilliant at aiming while in motion, although this will of course leave you susceptible to enemy attack. And while you're in the ground mode, you can just go ham at the ground enemy from a distance. I found that this mode restricts which angles you can aim at though, so I didn't use it as much. The enemies themselves unfortunately aren't too bright however, just using the age-old tactic of ramming you and then shooting you while up close. I don't really know what I should expect for a game from 1998, but it would be nice if the combat was a bit more interesting as that's what the whole game is. Sure, there are objectives to complete, but these are mostly to do with finding blue force fields and shooting them to progress the game. Since the checkpoint system is hardcore too, throwing you to the start of the level whenever you die, I found myself racing past the enemies not even bothering to engage in combat just to get to the objectives after the third or fourth try of each level. The game doesn't punish you at all if this is done, unless wiping out all the insects in the level is in fact the main objective. Even though there are no checkpoints mid-level, the health system is thankfully a little lenient. The health bar takes quite a few hits to completely diminish, and there are also droplets hanging off flowers that can gain back health. There are also plenty of pickups scattered around that look like floating seeds that will give you another life if enough are collected, but the ones surrounded by a green aura will fill your life bar to max. The life system as a whole is a bit flawed though. The idea is that if you lose enough lives, then it'll be game over, but you know what? I have a secret weapon. The game doesn't save until the end of each completed level, so if you've died enough to warrant a game over, then resetting the console is just going to take you back to the start of the level you failed anyway, along with all the lives you had when you last saved. You have nothing to lose doing this, even if it does label you as a dirty cheater. While the environments are interesting enough, even if they are slightly hampered by bland texture maps, the short draw distance really impacts gameplay. Buck Bumble is all about long-range combat. It's all about drawn-out dogfights in huge environments, as well as exploration. If you can't see 30 meters in front of you, then it becomes a problem. I very regularly flew right into kamikaze insects and bigger enemies that deplete your health bar quickly, simply because I could not see them and stop in time. This affects the gameplay quite a bit, and at least to a few rage quit worthy moments. On the plus side though, the character models are quite well done, and I did enjoy the level's overall presentation and design, even if they are blanketed in thick fog until up close, so it's not all gloom and doom. The sound on the other hand is on a whole different level. Turning on this game for the first time, I was greeted by some dirty ass garage beats, which I can't say I expected, but oh boy, did I enjoy. The intro song has since become a fan favourite, but the rest of the soundtrack is fantastic, comprising of plenty of English late 1990s garage and house tunes. You may not be into that type of music, but think about it, you're playing a cyborg bee saving the world from evil insects. What genre of music could possibly fit better?
Ultimately, this game is actually quite fun if it just isn't long stretches of dull combat. But you may also leave some gaming sessions feeling frustrated because of the unforgivable checkpoint system. There is nothing worse than dying after 10 minutes of gameplay and then having to start over. Sometimes I just couldn't be bothered. On the other hand though, we have a game that has created an incredibly creative and original world with a fantastic soundtrack to go along with it. Even though the levels could have benefited from a few more objectives, the gunplay is on point and Buck is a breeze to fly around.
Hello retro gamers, and thank you so much for watching. On this screen you'll see a few other reviews as well as links to my new video series, Retro News Fortnightly. In that I talk about all the news in the retro gaming world every 2 weeks, and I'm eager to know what anyone thinks. There is also a link to my blog at retrogameon.com, where in a recent post I talk about a game called Heart of Darkness on the PlayStation 1. Anyway, thanks again so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.